imagine you're writing about a couple who have a really happy first date. It just goes really well, and you want to convey that the time passes and they're just happy. It's really romantic. Well, you could write something like it was a romantic occasion and they were so intent on each other that hours passed and they hardly noticed. But it's kind of bland. It's a bit vague. It could reply to any date, and it sort of denies the joy of interpretation. It's telling rather than showing. So you find yourself wondering, all right, is there any way that we can show that this couple, let's call them Claude and Roger, is there any way that we can show through concrete detail that Claude and Roger have such a lovely time? So you think, well, okay, is there any item that can convey both the passage of time and romance? Well, what about candles, right? Candles are nice. You like candles? I like candles. Candles are good, right? Because a candle, that shows the passage of time, because, of course, a candle changes as it burns. It melts, it shortens. But a candle at dinner, that suggests romance, right? So instead, you could write something such as, they sat until the candles burned right down to the wick. Well, it's concrete and it's showing rather than telling, but it's a bit obvious. It's slightly sort of overused. It's not that original. And often, if your writing seems to be a wee bit unoriginal, if you're struggling to come up with something new, often the secret is to be more specific. So how about we start to think about, well, what sort of candles would Claude put out? Let's say Claude is hosting Roger. What sort of candles would he use? I don't think it would be a love heart candle. I mean, it's a first date. That'd be a wee bit much, right? And I think that candle looks a bit too religious. That one looks a wee bit like something you'd put in your bathroom. I don't think he'd have candlesticks. See, this guy Claude, he's cooked the dinner. He's a PhD student. He's studying Derrida and toilet etiquette. I don't know. He's a cultured guy, but he's not wealthy. And he lives in this basement flat where there's like geraniums fall over his kitchen window. And you see, this is for Claude. It's a temporary home. He's not yet dug in for life. He's not yet acquired candlesticks. So how does he fix the candles? Well, he likes wine. So maybe he sticks some candles in empty wine bottles. And now we're getting somewhere, right? Because now there's a very clear visualization of the passage of time. We could write, they sat until the candles had dripped trails of wax the length of the empty wine bottles. It's an improvement, right? But what about, right? Suppose you want to condense it all. Suppose you really want to make a point of this. Suppose you want to deploy metaphor. Then you'd start thinking about, well, what could we do metaphorically with this idea of the candle wax dripping? You're probably looking for a sensory comparison. What senses could you use? Well, it doesn't really smell of that much. To feel it, it's hot when it comes out, but that's quite a brief thing. It doesn't convey the passage of time. You're unlikely to taste it, but it is visually distinctive. So we start thinking, what does this candle wax dripping down this bottle look like? And when I was doing this, the first thing that I thought of, the first thing that came to mind was tentacles, right? It looks like tentacles. Perfect, tentacles of wax on the bottle. But no, that goes against the whole idea of romance. I mean, how are poor Claude and Roger going to get it on when everyone's thinking about slimy, slithery tentacles? No, that won't do. So then I got to thinking about bolts of lightning, something like there were sparks of candle wax lightning on the bottles between Claude and Roger. And I thought, well, that's quite a good idea because, sparks of lightning suggests a connection, electricity, but no, because lightning's a brief thing. It doesn't convey the passing of time. So then I thought about icicles or stalactites. Now that's good, right? Because they really convey the passage of time, and it nicely captures the shape of the wax on the bottle. But Icicles and stalactites suggest freezing cold and dark caves. They act against all our metaphors for love and romance. The fire of love, the warm atmosphere, the kindling romance, the burning passion. Sure, if we were writing about a long, uncomfortable evening where two characters who dislike each other struggle to find things to talk about, then the stalactites or the icicles of wax and the empty bottles would be perfect, very apt. But it's not right for our scene. It's not right for the blossoming love between Roger and Claude. Blossoming. What about the roots of a tree? Now visually the comparison's not so strong, but it's still there, and a tree takes time to develop roots. And this metaphor suggests new growth, spring, optimism. Just as the characters are at the beginning of a new relationship, we could be onto something here. They sat until the candle wax dripped like roots on the empty wine bottles. And yet that sounds sort of weird and clumsy somehow. So we can consider different types of comparison. What if we made it a metaphor instead of a simile? They sat until the candles grew roots on the empty wine bottles. I like it. Or how about, they sat until the candles were rooted in the empty wine bottles. Now this sentence uses 12 words. It's 9 words shorter than our original, which was, it was a romantic occasion and the couple were so intent on each other that hours passed and they hardly noticed. It's the same length as our first candle sentence. They sat until the candles had burned right down to the wick. But just look at how much more it tells us. We learn something about the sort of person Claude is, that he is this bohemian type who has these empty wine bottles, and yet he's not yet dug in for life and inherited candlesticks, or however one acquires candlesticks, but he's got these wine bottles and he puts them in the candles in there, and we get a sort of image of bohemian lifestyles and French cafes and all the rest of it. And we also get this idea of something really solid beginning, this tree putting down roots, that this isn't just a one night stand they're going to have. This is the beginning of something that could go on and really grow into something. We have images of new life and hope and something grand developing from a small beginning. We convey all of this and we use fewer words than the original. And that, I put to you, is the difference between good writing and writing that's just not trying hard enough. Thanks for watching and good luck with your writing.